Recording's on.
Perfect. It's 11:02 a.m. and the public meeting of the OGCC is called to order. Roll call: Frank Thorwald,
Stephen Cooper, Bill Feierabend,
Dale Nations.
We have a quorum. The meeting is established. Is there any conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 2. We're going to table that to our next meeting as the minutes are not ready at this time. Item 3, Vice Chairman vacancy. Do we have anybody that would like to step up and take the Vice Chairman's role?
Mr. Chair,
This is Dale Nations.
Yes, Dale.
This may sound silly, but I nominate myself for Vice Chairman for the following reasons. First of all, my institutional memory as a member of the Oil and Gas Commission lasts for 42 years, which may be good or bad, but I've represented 10 governors and they've seen fit to keep me functioning there. Another point is I have geological knowledge and experience of 61 years, mostly on oil and gas issues and the geology of Arizona. Legislative number item, I have legislative experience as mayor of Flagstaff and 42 years on the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission. Finally, my health is restored by 2 surgeries in the last 2 years. So in the future, I'll be able to be more active on the commission. Thank you.
Commissioner Cooper.
Dale, I was going to tell you to shut up. You had me at hello. Mr. Chair, I was going to nominate Dale Nations as Vice Chair for those exact reasons. I think when you look at issues involving oil and gas, other than possibly the chair and our staff, he is the go-to person in the state of Arizona. It would be an excellent chairman, as he has been in the past. So I would second his nomination.
Commissioner Fireman. Any other discussions before we vote? All in favor of Dale being the Vice Chairman, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Do I vote?
Yes, go ahead.
After that speech, you darn sure better.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Dale is the Vice Chairman. Thank you, Dale, for stepping forward. Number 4, report of the Oil and Gas Administrator. Dennis?
Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is to talk a little bit more in detail.
Pardon me, this is Dale. Sorry to interrupt Dennis, but I want to tell the Commission that I commend Dennis for his preparation and assistance to the Commission in its consideration of this complicated issue before we face today. He's doing a great job. Thank you. Bye.
Stay on line, please.
Yeah, don't hang up.
All right, let's move on.
Go ahead,
All right.
Dennis.
Anyway, the first item on the agenda is the oil and gas sample repository in Tucson. I won't recount all the past things that have been done leading up to it, but we now have what I would consider a fully functioning sample repository where we can accept samples, have assigned designated or designated help in Tucson ADQ office that can receive samples. He knows how to log them in and place them in the appropriate shelves and stuff like that. I've showed you some photographs previous meetings. Niall Nemeth worked temporarily for me for a very short period of time, and he was the primary mover and shaker in getting the thing reorganized. Spent a lot of time ciphering the hieroglyphics and the organizational mysteries of the past samples and how they're organized and cataloged, and we've got a much better understanding of what's down there now. And the good news is that, frankly, I think we have at least 10 years of space left in the basement there in Tucson. We don't have to worry about moving samples. We don't have to worry about running out of space, at least for 10 years. And also, we put out a call to all the operators that had been sitting on samples for the last 3 years since the transition from the Geological Survey to ADQ as far as the administrators housing what agency he's in. And I've actually received samples already from Blackstone, and I think in progress also are samples will be shipped from some of the other operators that have drilled wells in the last 3 years. As far as web improvements, I'd invite you all to go to the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission's website. It has many of the same colors, looks a lot like it used to do. The main thing is that there's been an upgrade and several security upgrades. The language that was used before, Drupal's version 6, has been upgraded to version 7. It's a more responsive website, and security upgrades also help in terms of the usual thing we have to worry about nowadays, hacking and multiple attacks and so on and so forth. I have upgraded the homepage with downloadable information on checklists, the things that you heard me talk about in the last year and a half. And some of the other tabs have also had some upgrades and some additional attachments. Progress report on Sunbelt Holdings. These are the 2 wells we plugged and abandoned that were deep salt body tests, stratigraphic tests back in the early 2000s. The Suncor 119 we've already discussed, has been plugged and abandoned. I spoke to Kevin Hebert, the consultant for the company who I haven't been able to identify yet, that will be responsible for plugging the 1-24, but they've got all the bids out. Actually, I guess they've accepted a bid, but I guess they're trying to decide, the owner is trying to decide who's going to pay for it, the plug and abandonment. The main point, though, I want to bring up on this agenda item is that I have had a conversation, follow-up from Mr. Cooper's suggestion about recording these well locations with the Maricopa County Recorder, and Mr. Hebert, the consultant, is agreeable to that, thinks it's a good idea. I wondered if the commission wanted to formally vote to require Sunbelt to record the location of their well. Now, I've since found out, since I wrote this agenda, that they actually don't have control over the 1-24, but we can phrase the motion to where these 2 wells should be recorded with the Maricopa County Recorder. I wonder, for discussion, I wonder if what should be attached to that recording is the final plugging report that the consultant submits. It's public record anyway, and it contains good information for future occupiers of that land surface, so they need to know something more about that well. So that's my request, is that the board consider a formal vote to lock it in
Dennis
stone.
and Frank and commissioners, I think this is somewhat unconventional. Therefore, I believe this move would be appropriate, considering the location of those wells. And I'll make a motion whenever necessary, or somebody else can.
Any discussion on this?
Mr. Chair, I think that basically recording is a good idea for the reasons I expressed previously. I think that all we would need to list on there would be the legal description that's provided in the permit for the well, and perhaps Mr. Turner would look at that to see what other notice is there to file. I think the closing notice he has may be an excellent historical marker that would be recorded in the public record, so that someone could, in the future, figure out basically why that well was there in the first part and give them some history as to when the well was drilled and how it was maintained.
I have a point.
Yes.
This is Bill. To record it by the location, is that one of these that it's 1,034 feet east from the section corner and
GPS. I think that's
my
I don't know.
point.
I don't know exactly what that process is with the CAD recorder, but no,
it'll be GPS.
It's been located by GPS because of the fact that we don't have a surface stake. I asked them to do a GPS.
Because a professional GPS should get it down to the fraction of the inch, and there'd be never a question as long as there are GPS satellites.
Right. No, it wasn't done with somebody's cell phone.
Perfect. Thank you.
Licensed surveyor.
The county recorder requires typically that you have an assessor's parcel identified as your legal description. Not the number, but the parcel description.
Oh, in addition to, okay.
Thank you.
And I got to believe that's in the application.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dale, you want to make that into repeat your motion?
Okay. I move to require Sunbelt Holdings to record the location of the Suncor 1-19 and the Suncor 1-24 wells when plugged with the Maricopa County Recorder.
Serious?
Just so that there's clear, I don't think, I've just found out this morning, Dale, that Sunbelt doesn't actually have control of the 1-24. I'm not sure who does have control of it, but I would say maybe the motion should just say that those 2 wells shall be recorded.
Okay. I amend the motion.
I have a. This is Rick Zeiss from Attorney General's office. I have a problem telling a landowner who's not present at this meeting that he's going to have to do this. I would rather leave it with Sunbelt Holdings to make that decision in that problem. I'm assuming that they're getting to 124 through an access agreement.
No.
But that's.
No, I think what you need to do is just make a move for the 119 and direct Sunbelt. They've already been contacted by the consultant. The conversation I had this morning to get a progress report is when I learned that Sunbelt doesn't actually have control of 124. Someone else does. So maybe the 124 needs to be on another agenda in the future when I know the operator, landowner, whatever. But Mr. Hebert is definitely going to talk to the company about recording. So, and I don't think they should have any pushback issues with it.
Then maybe we ought to reword our motion before the board to include only 119, but certainly it's open for discussion.
Any other thoughts from the other commissioners?
What is the exact?
I
sorry.
agree with that amendment if you'd like to go ahead with it.
Okay, this is Bill. Is the exact wording that we're directing them to do it, or that we're requesting them to do it? What is the exact wording of the?
We should direct them to
Require.
Require it.
Require it, okay? Okay.
Commissioner Cooper?
In the future, it may be, and certainly Mr. Zeiss would have to look at it as it depends on the issue, that maybe that the commission direct our administrator to record it. I think by the time you direct these parties to do things, it's one thing to direct them, it's another thing to get them to do it. And especially if Sunbelt believes they no longer have, legal title to one of those, those well sites, they may say, we can't force them to do something that they don't have, and that's the concern that I have.
I agree. I have some reservation about having Dennis Turner file them. However, certainly with a little research, we can discuss this. As of right now, we do know that Sunbelt Holdings does have apparently control of well 1-19, and they have the appropriate information to file with the county recorder. Other than that, do you have further suggestion?
No, as to this issue, I think, I think that Mr. Turner and your comments are that we confine it just to the one well they have control over at this time, and then we can address the other well at a future meeting.
Dale, would you amend your motion to the one well?
Yes. Do I need to restate it?
Yes, please.
I move to require Sunbelt Holdings to record the location of Suncor 1-19 well with the Maricopa County Recorder.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Dale?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. With regard to the 124 well, we can table that to the next meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'd suggest that we table it to a future meeting. The reason being, we may not be able to get the information before the next meeting, and we wind up tabling it again.
Okay, then we'll just table it to a future meeting.
What we'll do is note it, and when appropriate, we will have it become an agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis, would you please proceed on to the next item?
Report on permit activity. Ranger Development has of late submitted applications for 7 applications to drill, and as of today they've received 7 approvals. They're in various stages of drilling. Some of them are about ready to spud or set surface conductor pipe, I should say. Rare Earth Exploration received an application approval to drill in April or May for the 28-1, and they have drilled that well. I'll have some more discussion about it in a few minutes. They think they have something in the 28-1, and they're trying to get the well to pressure up a bit, and they're going to be asking for a shut-in status, but that's a separate agenda item. Vision Energy is an application, the permit that was issued approximately 3 years ago. I think it was renewed a couple of times. It finally expired. Vision Energy was tied in with Praxair. Praxair has decided that they're only interested in hauling helium from these gas-producing sites. They're not interested in the drilling and production of it. They turned it over to another company called Evolution Exploration. They submitted basically the same application for the 32-1 well to drill, and I issued approval to drill to them for that permit this week. So the clock is ticking, their 188 clock is ticking. The next item on the agenda then is requesting that the Oil and Gas Commission consider changing all the remaining meeting dates for 2018. As of today, with the postponement, the actual next meeting date would be August 10th, so that's only about a month away. I would like to suggest or request that we just skip that August 10th meeting and we reschedule the September, November, and December meetings to be a week earlier. If you like, I can cite those dates exactly. I'm not sure how you want to handle this process.
Commissioners?
Well, let's start with the fun one. I have no problem with canceling the August meeting.
That'll make a 9-week gap until the following meeting, which I'm requesting be rescheduled to September 14th. It's currently September 21, so it's just a week earlier.
Does this need a motion to approve?
I don't know. That's what I'm bringing
My
it up.
suggestion would be to go through, give me the dates for September, November, and December real quickly if you have them.
Okay, September 14th would be the new date. October 26th is the new date. And the final meeting of the year would be December 7th. And then skip August 10th.
Do you need a motion for those?
I don't think so. I think it just,
Look at our calendars.
because we can give notice of 24 hours for a hearing.
Yeah.
We provide a courtesy notice in the future. So I don't think we need what we have is the board's discussed it, and rather than we vote on, we have apparent approval to change dates. So the dates, would, as noted, are changed, subject to any other addition amendments I make here in the future.
I have no problem with those dates.
They're fine with me.
I will have a problem with the September 14th meeting, but I think you should have a quorum, and if you don't, please let me know.
What days of the week are those?
Fridays.
On Fridays.
And I think the room will be the usual 3100B rather than this one. That room's kind of in high demand. That's why we're here today.
I have no problem with those either.
Showing the next issue.
Okay. I had reserved space at this time for any further discussion in regards to fracking, hydrofracking in the helium wells. We heard from the special interest group in the first hearing. I just allowed for space at this point if they wanted to have some further discussion with the commission. I don't know if anybody's here from that group.
No.
No, we can just move
Move
on.
on.
Okay. So Triumph Energy came before us in July or August of last year and asked for a 1-year extension of their shut-in status, which we granted them. They come to me again and are asking for another shut-in status of a year. The background is that they have run their seismic lines. I don't know what the results of those seismic tests are, but they're still interested in holding on to this well. They've asked for a 1-year extension of shut-in status. They've met all the requirements to receive their approval pursuant to the rule and then 125 about temporary abandonment or shut-in. I recommend, just so we don't have to keep coming back and doing this so frequently, is we just give them 5 years for shut-in status. That way, if things unforeseen cause more delays, they don't have to come back to the well, so to speak, next year. they've got 5 years. If it takes them 18 months to get what they want done before they take action and re-enter that well, they're still within the 5 years. If it takes them 4 years and 11 months, they're still within the 5 years. They don't have to come back to us to ask for another extension. So my recommendation is just grant them a 5-year shut-in status.
I have a quick question. Dennis, can you explain or indicate why it's going to be shut-in status and not temporarily abandoned?
So it has the potential to produce, which is a basic distinction between a well that is temporarily abandoned versus a well that is shut in. And they've demonstrated that they have the potential zones to produce from, and it's capable of production. So
That should be corrected in the agenda, which states in item 5 that we may vote on the temporary abandonment.
This is Frank Thorwald. I actually had a discussion with the people at Triumph Energy, and they were still weren't quite finished with the. When I had this discussion a few weeks ago with the seismic, and they had talked to me about potentially a few months delay in this, and I suggested that instead of doing a few months that they put in for a year. I don't think 5 years is appropriate in this case. I think a year, they need to be encouraged to get this done sooner than later. And from my discussions with them, they want to get it done sooner than later as well.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. But again, my point is the correction on the agenda about changing temporary abandonment to shut-in status.
I agree with you.
Given the confusion, this is Rick Cyrus from Attorney General's office, some of the confusion we've had since this ADQ has taken over administration, the differences between shut-in status and temporarily abandoned status, I believe it would be appropriate for the board to consider either, because prior to ADQ taking over, I think those words were used somewhat interchangeably. That's the reason I asked Dennis to clarify today. However, it's up to the commission to discuss and determine how they wish to proceed.
Yeah, I think in this case, this is Dale, temporary abandonment would be more appropriate. We have been told that there is potential for production, but there's no testing that shows that. So I would move that we grant temporary abandonment just for a period of 1 year.
Dale, Frank Thorwald here, they have tested at our site, and they know there's helium there. What their issue is, they want to find out the volume of the pool of helium and determine how many other wells that if the pool is large enough, they want to determine the wells and others that they could produce in that area. And they just want to get through the seismic first.
Well, if it's been established that there is producible helium from that zone, then I'll back off on my statement of changing it to temporary abandonment, and let's move to grant shut-in status for a period of 1 year.
Mr. Chair, the problem with that, the agenda item says that may consider and vote on the temporary abandonment status.
Yes.
It doesn't say something else.
Okay. Well, the suggestion may be then to move on to and have this tabled for next meeting.
Do we have any time frames that are expiring?
Yes, July
Yes.
31st.
What difference, this is Bill, what difference does it make to the company whether they're granted shut-in or temporary abandonment status? What difference would it make to them?
From their perspective, as long as they get a year's extension, they don't have to worry about plugging and abandoning it.
Okay.
It's kind of semantics, really, because of the definitions. And
Okay.
I would really ask that the commission consider a little more flexibility in granting them what they need because of frankly, a typo on the agenda.
What would be the difference?
You could phrase your motion so that it can be approved, because we're not planning to meet now until September.
If we approve for temporary abandonment, what is the effect on the company? If we
That was,
fo-
yeah, that was
And-
my
They're gonna
and
take the same
not-
actions.
Same action, so
Whether it's temporary abandonment or shut-in. But the rule, for whatever reason, people that wrote these rules back in the 60s made a distinction between shut-in and temporary abandonment.
my suggestion would be to approve them for temporarily abandonment status, or temporarily abandoned status, based upon the entry, the
Okay.
agenda entry, unless the commission has some other feeling on it.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'm ready for a motion, Mr. Dale.
Okay.
That I move that the grant temporary abandonment status for the Triumph Energy number 1 well, but I'd like to see it for 5 years. So for 5 years,
second.
they don't have to use all that time.
Quick question again on this. 5 years versus 1 year on the temporary abandonment. What does that do to the company? Any other effects on that with regard to plugging?
Well, you kind of made a valid point. I'm not sure that the well integrity is in question. We might want them to do some kind of well integrity test, a pressure test, when they emerge from that finally and want to do something with the well. But as far as your point, maybe it encourages them to move along faster. I hadn't considered that. That's a valid thing. But in the interest of not burdening the commission with doing this year after year after year, it gives them more flexibility if stuff happens. I mean, obviously something's happened that delayed them getting their seismic work completed, and they assured us last year that they would definitely be done by July 31st, and here we are talking about extending it. So I'm just trying to provide flexibility.
And I'm trying to think of, we don't want to add any more cost to them since they were originally talking only months versus 5
Well,
years.
it would be their cost. It'd be their decision to have that kind of cost. If they want to take 5 years and it costs them more money, it's
Well, I meant,
cost. It's
that
their
wasn't my
call.
question. Shut-ins, temporarily abandonment for 1 year versus 5 years, does that automatically require them to do any other work that they would not have to do in shut-in status?
No.
Okay.
Just gives them more time because of the vagaries of contracting and scheduling activities. They may have a favorite contractor they want to use for size work, and they're very busy, and
Upon the
blow
granting
deadline.
of temporarily abandoned status, they can't touch the well without coming back to the board first for.
Right, they can't touch the well. They cannot touch the well. That's correct.
Okay, so
If there is no action by the commission, then the rule defaults to they got to plug and abandon it, which
After
they
one
don't
year.
want to do, and we don't want them to do that either.
but they can come back out and request another year. And
Yeah, they
maybe
can.
That's up to the board.
I understand that they want to do something with that well very soon, and that was once they get through this study, which is why they originally asked for months. So
I think the point of difference between shut-in status and temporary abandonment was just stated by somebody, that if it's temporary abandonment, they cannot proceed with developing the well. So we do need to give them shut-in status to allow them to do that.
yes, because they want to develop that.
Yes, which is the whole idea.
So how do we do that given the wording on item 5?
Well, that is not the action of the commission. The action of the commission will be determined by the motion.
Dale, do you want to reword your motion or restate it?
Yeah, I'll restate it. I move that the commission grant shut-in status for the Triumph Energy number 1 for a period of 5 years.
Rick, can we do that?
I have some concerns because it's not on the agenda in that matter. Mr. Cooper has voiced his concerns also. Under either temporarily abandoned status or shut-in status, under either status is voted, the operator still cannot go back to the well and touch it.
125D.
Yes. And so, no matter which way you go, going to shut-in status doesn't change what the company can do to the well. Under either determination, they can't touch the well until they come back to the board and get approval to move forward with the well.
Okay.
Okay, I misunderstood that.
Now, do you have time for a question for me?
Yes.
If we table this and we know that it's going to expire, what effect does that have? Are they still allowed to touch their well until it gets back to us?
Yes. Because this board has taken no further steps in improving either status, they can still touch their well. They can still operate their well. Once the board approves status, then they're good for it.
If
Doctor,
that's the case, I move to table.
and I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Motion's denied.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
And the motion is approved as a motion to table.
Yes.
Like I'm in a sausage factory today.
Kind of feels that way, yes.
It's tabled to the next meeting then?
Table to an appropriately noticed meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
A future meeting.
Okay, item 6, Blackstone exploration. Dennis?
We're here basically to talk about the state number 4 well that Blackstone drilled in summer of 2016. And the basic request they have is for temporary abandonment status, which we've already kind of beat that to death. But there's been concerns on my part as to the cement job in the well, and I think I've outlined in some detail in the past the options that I feel that the commission can consider in terms of what to grant for this well. Did you want me to review?
Dale, I don't know what you're doing on the year end there, but it sounds rather strange.
Yeah.
Sorry, nature called.
Sausage day. What else?
I guess this is flush and abandon.
You going to reconsider the vice chairmanship now?
Is that going to be written in the minutes?
It is, of course, it's being recorded.
It's being recorded, Dale. It's public record.
Let's move on. Go ahead.
Dennis, quick question, Dennis. What's the name of this well? I could, in the well locator, I could find a 13116629 and also a.
That's the lease number of state. If it's plotted on the oil and gas viewer, it would be the Blackstone state number 4 or Blackstone number 4 state.
Is that lease number?
Yeah.
Do we have somebody here representing Blackstone?
I am.
Please come forward.
My name's Evan Thompson. I'm actually an attorney in Arizona because the consultants provided their reports to you via the sundry notices that were filed on May 20th and again on June 26th. One is by Mr. Castellano, or Catalano, I'm sorry, a registered geologist, who performed the cement bond log analysis, and then a separate cement bond and casting integrity determination analysis by Kurt Schob, who is a registered geologist also. I'm not as technically savvy, obviously, as the geologists or the engineers that look at this, and so my client's really relying on the geologist reports to provide the Oil and Gas Commission the analysis that it was their understanding that you were looking for the last time when this particular temporary abandonment request was taken.
Thompson, do you have any specific requests or recommendations other than what you've just presented to us?
I don't really, other than my client's request is to temporarily abandon the well. I think the issue that was raised, or my understanding issue that was raised, was the integrity of the cement bond. I think Mr. Catalano's analysis provides that the integrity is good within the confines of the footage that is allowed. And then ECF Consulting's analysis talked about, what was originally applied for, what is there, what was meant to protect, and then the unlikelihood of being able to go back and, as they call it, a squeeze job, to try to pump further into it is nearly impossible. They went through the analysis and provided the analysis as to what was applied for when the well was drilled, what protections were to put in place in that application, and then whether or not that meets that requirement, and according to ECF Consulting, it does.
Commissioners, questions?
In the long range, what is it that your client's wanting to do with the well?
I don't have an answer for that. I do know at this time it's the temporary abandonment,
Okay.
and that's really what they're seeking, and that's what the request is, and that's what's in front of you.
I have a comment. This is Dale.
Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
think after all of the reporting, getting professional geological opinions, that the Commission can grant temporary abandonment following plugging back to a total depth of approximately 732 feet, rather than filling the whole wellbore with cement.
Dr. Nations, why 732 feet?
Well, that's the depth that's projected for the to shut off the freshwater aquifer. Is my understanding.
Can I add to that?
Now I cannot define that depth, so that would have to be done by comparison with additional logs from nearby wells.
Dennis, could you speak to that?
So the depth of 732 feet is the bottom of the surface casing, where is the bottom of the good cement job for the surface casing. The free pipe problems start below 732 and continue for about 2,000 feet down. And it's apparently mostly in the supine, which apparently doesn't have any water production capabilities and no gas production capabilities. The operators indicated that they have some hope of being able to test shallow zones above the base of the surface casing, above 732 feet. He didn't specify where, but by plugging back to that depth, he'd still be able to do that at some point in the future. I have concerns about whether, if the state had to take over control of that well, the cost to the state to plug that well, if it was left at total depth and temporarily abandoned, versus if it was plugged back to the total depth of 732, I think the cost could be considerably less if we ever had to take over control of a shallower well.
At what depth did they have the problems with the salt formation dissolving?
Well, I can't give you precise numbers, but like one salt and anhydrite interval was like around 1,100 feet. Maybe another one was in 1,500 feet, something like that. But none of those really produce water or anything like that, and doesn't seem any gas potential there. But as a result, you've got some fairly big volumes of the diameter of the well itself, the annulus that the casing is inserted in, throughout that interval from about 732 down to approximately 2,740.
A question.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Dr. Nations.
If temporary abandonment is granted under those conditions, what's the time limit on that? Is that a 5? Do we determine that time limit for temporary abandonment, or is that already fixed?
To maximum of 5 years.
It's a maximum of 5 years.
The other 4 rocking chair ranch wells have been granted temporary abandonment status for 5 years.
So if we were consistent, we could do the same with this one.
To be consistent, that's right.
Dennis, I have a quick question. What is the concern in the, you discussed the annulus and you discussed the casing and the borehole. What's your concern between 732 feet and 2,000 feet? What do you see as the issue or the problem?
I don't know what the condition of that casing is. If it's intact, that's fine, but over time it's going to deteriorate. I'd like to clarify as far as maybe semantics, as far as casing integrity versus cement bond. There is a very adequate demonstration about cement bond, which is that the bond of the cement to the casing and the formation that it's supposed to be clinging to is well established, and there's no concerns there. But as far as casing integrity or mechanical integrity, that's a pressure test, and there's been no pressure test done. It's possible that the operator did a bottom hole pressure test, but that's not the same thing as a mechanical integrity test. And over time, I don't know what the mechanical integrity of that casing might be, but we kind of eliminate that concern if we just go back to plug back to the total depth of the 732. It's indicated from what I read in the consultants' reports and the other submittals that there isn't much down below there as of interest anyway. If long-term plan might be that he would turn this well over to a local rancher for a livestock water source.
Let me stop you. Let me ask another question. So between 732 feet and 2,000 feet, is there any mechanism, such as cement, that is attaching the casing itself to the sides of the borehole or to the formation?
No, we don't know really what it looks like down there. It could be that the casing in places is secured because of the fact that the formation is collapsed in around it. It's what's called bridging. Okay. But that is kind of an unstable situation. It would seem to me that because of the caliper log, which measures the diameter of the actual annulus, it goes off the chart. 16 inches is as big as it gets, and the diameter of the well apparently is bigger than that. If you tried to start filling all that with cement, you might end up pumping an awful lot of cement down there.
Let me stop you for a minute and follow up with a question. In regards to the annular space or the annulus we're talking about below 732 feet up to 2,000 feet, you indicated there are voids, and by voids I mean a space between the casing itself and the side of a formation.
Right.
And can you give me an idea of how much space that is?
Well, in places it exceeds 16 inches in diameter, but I don't know how much because the caliper tool only measures to 16 inches.
So if I can kind of boil this down then, between 732 feet and 2,000 feet, there are parts of this casing where there is nothing between the casing and the formation, and that space can be up to 16 inches across.
Yeah, or more.
So this casing has the ability to move around in the borehole itself.
I guess it could, yeah. It's called free pipe, is what the term in the term of art.
Is there?
But I have an opinion there. Now, the caliper log shows that there's much less space in the annulus than what we're talking about. It's generally just a couple of inches, is my understanding. That'll be over the great majority of the section we're talking about.
So, Dr. Nations, quick follow-up question then is, in your opinion, as you've read the information, do you feel as if the casing is at least somewhat supported, or is there any danger of that casing collapsing based upon the spacing, the opening in the annular space between 732 feet and 2,000 feet?
No, but irrelevant. I think it's irrelevant whether it collapses or not in that period of space, because we're not moving any fluids through it. There's no activity within that with that drill pipe, and if the formation bridges it by collapsing on it, so that's pretty normal.
Okay. For Mr. Turner, I have a question. As you sit here today, from the information you have, is there any resource below 732 feet that would have a recovery horizon, something they could pull out of the ground? And I'm speaking of gas or water.
I'm not aware of it or didn't understand that from the information information that's been given to me.
And from 732 feet to the surface, is there any recoverable, I'll call it acid for lack of a better word, any recoverable gas or water that would be available?
The operators indicated there may be potential, but he didn't identify specifically where.
One of the other issues had to do with, I believe there's an indication that the owner of the well may be attempting to give it to a rancher or somehow transfer it to a rancher for water production. Is that water production would be possible above 732 feet in this well then?
I believe so, yeah. I don't know exactly the horizons, but I think so, yeah.
Okay. And there was also an indication, I believe in the past, that the owner of the well was thinking about using it for saltwater injection. Is that correct?
He has definitely voiced that interest.
And have you heard anything from any other of the state agencies in regards to, take a step back, which agency owns this underlying piece of property?
It would be Arizona State Land Department.
And have you had any information from Arizona State Land Department in regards to whether it would allow saltwater injection to this well?
Yeah, I was copied on an email from the manager of the Minerals Division, Joe Dixon, and he pretty much in no uncertain terms told Mr. Bonanno that just using that well for a mere saltwater disposal from other sources would not be allowed by Arizona State Land. If there ever was to be any opportunity for him to do that, because he's probably producing from that well or from another nearby well on state land, and if he had a saltwater disposal problem, the state would probably consider it under those terms.
And last of my questions to you: what are the possible outcomes, or your suggested remedies, or your suggested handling of State Well Number 4, Arizona State Well Number 4?
Well, I thought about three options. There could be variants of that, but option one would just approve temporary abandonment status of the well as is. No more plug back, no nothing. Option two might be to plug back to a total depth of around 732 feet, which is the base of the service casing. Or option number three, which leaves the operator no options, is just to plug and abandon the well, period. Done.
For option number one, what are the risks to the environment, or what are the risks to the well? Are there any?
Well, there might be to the well as far as the fact that it's completely open. No, I can't really identify that. I don't think you're going to see contamination across formations and stuff like that. There's an adequate cement job on the top and the bottom, but stuff in the middle doesn't seem to have any potential for contaminations.
In regards to issue number two, you're calling for basically a bridge plug at 732 feet?
Yeah.
And what is that? In layman's terms, what's a bridge plug, and what would you consider? How would it be installed? Just
a drill rig would have to install a concrete or steel bridge plug at the base of that cement job, and make sure that it's secured in the casing, and I guess it even has to be secure in the formation of the cement behind it, and make sure. And I guess there's some cement work that has to be done below it. All of that just to secure and make it so that the new bottom of the hole is 732 feet, or plus or minus. It doesn't have to be exact that. But
if you were, let's assume that a bridge plug is put in at 732 feet, would that then isolate the rest of the top portion of this well from the
yeah, that'd be the intent. That's exactly right. That's the intent of plugging back total depth, is to isolate the top from the bottom.
And let's go to the third, which is plug and abandon. If you plug in, what's the effect of plug and abandon?
The operator would have no ability to re-enter the well, and our regulations say that you're done and you walk away. I mean, you'd have to get, if you wanted to re-enter the well at that point, you'd have to get a new permit.
Do any of the board members have any further questions or areas of inquiry?
I have two questions. At what depth did they lose the head and have to go around?
There were two places where they stuck a fish. The first time they recovered the fish, and then they went and drilled deeper, and the second fish is still down there, and I don't remember what that depth is, but it is somewhere well below the 732 feet.
Just for the record, you used a couple terms there that I'd like you to please clarify. What's stuck the fish? In more layman's terms, so that when this goes to the public, that someone can read and understand this. Someone like me who's not a geologist.
So the fish is just anything that gets stuck in a drill hole. And if we're talking about drilling a water well, or we're talking about drilling a gas well, an oil well, anything where you're drilling, you have drill pipe, you have a bit on the end, and you're drilling into the ground and having returning cuttings. At some point, you may be drilling too hard, you may have some engineering problems, the earth may shift, and it will clamp around that drill pipe, and it'll just grip onto it because of a collapse or something like that. And then when you try to pull out, you exert so much pressure on the drill pipe, you snap the drill pipe, and you leave part of the drill pipe and a bit in the hole, and that's the fish.
Okay.
So then you have to go back down and retrieve it or go fishing for it.
The two fishes that are left down,
There's only one fish down
The
there.
one fish, is it above or below 732 feet?
It's below.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank.
Okay. Second question that I have, what would be the cost to the operator in the first two scenarios?
I couldn't tell you what the cost in the first scenario would be, of just temporary abandonments, whatever costs there are to maybe pull some string. I don't really know for sure what the answer to that is. I think it would be minimal cost. The cost to do a plug back total depth to the 700 plus or minus feet, I'm crudely guessing from 10 to 25,000, maybe more. I don't have a good experience with that to know. If there's any operators in the audience that want to volunteer that information, it's just a guesstimate, because I really don't know.
It's expensive. I mean, it would be maybe less than that in this kind of an operation, but it would still be an expense, right?
Let me ask Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, do you have any information as to how much it would cost to put in a bridge, the bridge plug at 732 feet, or take some other step other than just granting temporary abandonment status? And again, I think the concern is cross-contamination below 732 feet and isolating this well below 732 feet.
And I understand the question, and I think the part of the problem is the cost because of the cement bond that was done prior to. So consultants tell me that it's not as simple as you would think on one that hasn't been set up the way this was set up. I don't really know how to explain it because again, I don't know the vernacular for the geology, but it's a large cost.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, I think this recommendation number 1 would violate the rules of the Oil and Gas Commission. We can't just allow them to walk away from these open holes. That has been done in the past. We know that. But that was incompetence at that time. And right now, we surely not consider doing the same thing. In other words, we need to assure that they complete this well in some way. One is by setting this bridge plug and isolating the lower hole from the coconino, which is the aquifer, and put a shin rump above that. So I think item 1 should be just discontinued in our considerations.
I mean, option 1.
Anyway.
Well, in option 1 or option 2, I think that would put a cap over the wellhead so that anything could go down it. But I think option 1 just means that they leave the well in the condition that it's in now and worry about what to do about it later.
Yeah, but 5 years down the road, we've got to deal with it again. Because their temporary abandonment status would expire.
Anyway, it's not clear to me that they've demonstrated there's any potential for production below the shallow zone, because he's holding out for an option of a saltwater disposal well option. I guess if either the livestock watering source didn't work out, or he'd like not to choose it, or the shallow potential didn't work out to be what he'd hoped.
And then that would take it out of our rules that have to go to the State Land Department for.
And the Arizona Department of Water Resources, if they're going to do a salt.
Yeah, ADWR.
No, DEQ.
Injection permit.
For if it was going to be underground
Think about
injection.
what that would cost.
Well, the underground injection control is a permit issued by the US EPA, but they would also, Blackstone would also need an aquifer protection permit.
Yeah.
And then they'd have to work with state land to convince them that it was a good thing to do.
Any other discussions on this? Any other questions? Do I have a motion on what to do here?
Well, if you're not tired of my motions, I move that we approve temporary abandonment status. I've forgotten the number of the well.
State 4.
ASLD number 4.
Approve temporary abandonment status after plugging back to total depth approximately the base of the surface casing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. Let's move on to item number 7.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you.
All right, the rare earth 28-1 well I indicated earlier has been drilled. They had some indication and hopeful that it might be a producing helium well, but the pressures are very low, which I understand is kind of typical of what's going on out there. And they want to have shut-in status because it has the potential to produce. They want to have shut-in status for this well. I think they're requesting it for 1 year. And so I have to come before the commission per the rule to get your approval for them to shut in the rare earth 28-1.
Is there any reason we should not grant them shut-in status?
I can't think of any. They've met the requirements for meeting the requirements for shut-in status.
Any discussion on this? Dale, you're on a roll. Do you want to make a motion?
Yep, I move that we grant shut-in status ECR 12-7-101. Oh, wait a minute. What's N20 and 125?
No, that's the rule citation. No,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not
rare earth 28-1.
Oh, the 28-1. Let me start over. I move that we grant shut-in status for the rare earth 28-1 for a period of 5 years. Let's quit going back to these things if we don't have to.
They only requested a year.
I know, but we can give them longer.
Yeah.
Any discussion? I second the motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Dale,
Yes.
are you an aye or a nay?
Oh, I said aye.
Okay. All opposed say nay. Motion carries.
I guess not all of my sounds come through.
Unfortunately, the wrong ones sometimes do.
Okay, let's move on to number 8.
Arizona Energy Partners. Okay, so we have two things I'd like to have the discussion with the representative if she's still here. I'd say cut to the chase first. I'm requesting that the commission vote to approve temporary abandonment status for the Arizona Energy Partners 16-1. That well is partially drilled. They ceased drilling on it mid-March of this year. And they need to get a heftier rig to reach total depth of proposed 4,000 feet on that well. And so Arizona Energy Partners is requesting a temporary abandonment for, was it a year? On that well. And then when they get their schedules coordinated and their needs met for other activities in the region, they'd be back to go back and complete the drilling of that well. It's my opinion they've met the requirements for temporary abandonment, except for the fact that they did wait a little too much long, because the rule says, 125 says, within 60 days an operator has to either get approval for temporary abandonment status or plug the well. They ceased drilling on the well mid-March, as I said, of this year, and here we are mid-July, so that's more than 60 days. But, you know, that's it.
Dennis, is there any reasons we should not approve this?
I can't think of any. I've been to the site, I've seen their operation, I have confidence they know what they're doing.
Does the representative want to say anything about this?
Because I know this is often a concern. Pipe in the hole right now is cemented to surface, covering the shallow surface water zones. So just in case that's a concern for anyone. Also, there was an attempt to submit a TA request earlier, but it was an incomplete form. That's our fault. But it was within the 60 days, but I don't blame Dennis for that one because the form didn't say anything. But I requested TA. So that's on us. So we came back around, filled out a completed form. The only reason we stood down off this well is the rig that was on the well wasn't safe to continue using that rig. We've since purchased a new rig. It's in Farmington in New Mexico. So once we were ready to roll, we would now have 3 wells. Completion of this, the other well we approved today, and then we have one other well that's approved for drilling.
This is Frank Thorwald. I make a motion that we approve temporary abandonment for 1 year for 16-1.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Well, wait a minute. I put on the agenda here also so that I wanted to have some more discussion in regards to the 16-1. Ultimately, I think you want a spacing exception for that one too, right?
Correct. And I'll be honest, I just started working for AEP. The goal was to get through this commission hearing with one spacing exception request, make sure that the process that we're using is acceptable to the commission.
How's that working for you?
So far, so good. So I think you can anticipate in September at the next meeting, just to ensure there are no issues down the road, because I'll basically give you the same, almost the same presentation on the geological structural targets. We'll be requesting a spacing exception for the 16-1 before we get back on the well. Right now we're waiting for monsoon season to pass up there before we bring the rig out of the location. And interestingly, there are between the MS-21 we just approved today and we have another 2-1 Navajo anticline. Those permits are coming up for expiration in October. It's been almost a year and a half since the APDs were originally approved, so there's some miscommunication that we need to address and not let happen again. So my goal would be to come forward with TA requests as well as, APD extensions and a 16-1 spacing exception request at the next hearing, and hopefully you will not see us until we're drilling wells after that for a while.
Ms. Hook, I have one request. Previously, when you get to the presentation, you used a slideshow. Can you send those slides to either Mr. Turner or myself, please, when you have time?
Absolutely, and I'll try to do it earlier than 5 a.m. this morning.
I'd like to have it become part of the public record.
Yeah, unfortunately I got them this morning,
That's
so I would have distributed them
I just
earlier.
want to make sure it's part of the public record.
Absolutely.
Thank
We'll do
you.
that next time.
Could you put on a scale bar?
Yes, and I won't cut it off the picture next time. I
I was
apologize.
going to say one thing
Yeah.
too, is you might want to watch on that 16-1. Well, there's an area up there where there's a really big bust in the surveying in the state. So instead of like these nice little square sections, they're all kind of, trapezoid.
Well, no, I actually couldn't find a well because of that.
Yeah,
when
I know,
was
yeah.
using the viewer because they're not.
Yeah, so when you see the presentation, it might look a little funny because it's not like this perfect 640 square section
Okay.
things, but just
It's
something
not
to
my
watch out
fault.
for. Yeah, I know.
Leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hook.
Item 9, Dennis, you want to? This is the Interstate and Oil Compact Commission dues.
Pretty much I'd like Dr. Nations to take the lead on this discussion, but I would just say that it's my feeling or recommendation that dues be paid of $1,500 a year for associate member dues. The full membership, which means that the commission representative has voting rights and can attend all the business meetings of the AZOGCC in Oklahoma City, which occur, I don't know if it's twice a year or 4 times a year, but the dues for that is $7,500. Associate member dues only eliminate the ability to vote on issues, and it's $1,500. It won't in any way affect our working with the AZOGCC on our peer review of our rules. So, Dr. Nations, if you have more to add to that,
Yeah,
turn it over to you.
I have a pretty, strong opinion about this. I've served on the oil and gas, the AZOGCC since 1976, and I've attended many business meetings during those years when the governor's office or research money was available for travel to those meetings. In recent years, that has not been possible, but I've participated as with the Oil and Gas Commission by telephone. I object strongly to the suggestion that we become associate members. We've been full-fledged members for many years and have contributed, I think, greatly to the activities of the AZOGCC, and I think we should continue to do so. I've spoken to Jerry Baker of this that was a couple of months ago, and he assured me that there is no pressure being exerted on us to meet the $7,000 dues payments. That those dues are strictly voluntary, and we pay whatever we can. And they understand that the weights with production in any given state. So I move that we, if there's a motion, that we maintain our active membership on the AZOGCC and pay whatever we can to meet our dues requirements, our dues assessments.
Commissioners, this is Frank Thorwald. I've also spoken to Jerry Baker, and I reiterate what Dale has said. There is no pressure on us to pay this amount, and it is voluntary. I've also spoken to ADEQ numerous times on this in the governor's office, and there is no money at any level to pay this, and it doesn't appear that there's going to be, at least for the foreseeable future. So my particular thoughts on this are we take no action at all.
I agree.
Unfortunately.
Please, Commissioner.
No, this is Bill. I was just unfortunate there's no money available, so whatever you think, be it $1,500 or $7,000 or something in between, it's kind of academic because there's no money available. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's a political decision.
Table this thing. Move to table.
Yes. Commissioner Cooper, any thoughts?
You guys can go on strike.
Exactly.
That'll work for the
Then,
future.
hearing nothing, I move that we table this to some future time when things change.
Second.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
opposed say nay. The motion has been tabled. I mean, the issue has been tabled. Okay, item 10, I have nothing to report at this time on these activities. Item 11, legislation, I can't talk today, I'm sorry, affecting the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. Dennis?
The first one, geothermal rules, coordination with ADQ and U.S. Geological Survey. I have nothing to report on that. As far as ADQ UIC primacy update, I attended a initial stakeholder meeting. Mr. Zeiss was there. Also, you may want to add to his observations to what I have to say, but they were seeking initial feedback from stakeholders as to the feasibility of taking over UIC, which is the Underground Injection Control Program, taking primacy from the U.S. EPA. Nationwide, the U.S. EPA is moving to push primacy to individual states. Many states have it, some don't. Arizona does not. So there was a stakeholder meeting. It was pretty interesting. Generally, a lot of support for the state taking it over. Some concern about whether there is enough resources, both technical expertise as well as funding. But it's very early in the process to predict what the outcome is. I'm not going to do that.
Yes, I have a quick question. how would it affect this commission? I assume it would affect it with the injection of stimulation of wells. Is that the effect you see?
No, I don't think.
How would you see?
There's no UIC permit required for an artificial stimulation of a well. There is a UIC permit required for creating injection wells. We have two facilities in the state now that have injection wells. Those are those LPG storage facilities, underground storage facilities. And there is a proposal, but not a proposal even then, it's just in the gleam of the eye of the operator to develop a natural gas storage facility in the Eloy area. Something Kinder Morgan had kicked around years ago, and now there's new interest by another company. And they would need a UIC permit, but what does that mean for us? It just means they still would get a permit to drill at the appropriate time, but that's it.
Let's assume that ADEQ begins drafting rules and statutes in regards to UIC, their grant of primacy. Does that have any effect on this commission?
That'd be too early to tell in any real detail. I'm sure I will be participating in that process, maybe like peripherally, just to advise them of how it impacts our rules. But that'd be hard to predict other than just saying it probably would. I'd want to see it make things a little more streamlined on our part, or on their part, a little bit clearer as the division of labor, I guess you could say.
This is Bill. Just to be very clear to everybody, what does UIC translate into in plain English?
The underground injection control. It's I don't know the specific statutory citation, but it's 40 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations. It is a federal program managed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay, thank you.
And it is the injection of fluids or wastes into the subsurface.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
In larger wells.
What?
In larger wells. They don't regulate anything that you inject.
Oh.
Any other discussion on this? Then let's move on to item 12, call to the public. Does anybody want to speak?
Before that, I do have discussion.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Dan.
Not on that particular topic, but I want to reiterate that we not use any oil and gas or OG or any staff time to answer questions that were brought up by that multiple zone completion hearing.
I concur with you.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that. I don't know if it needs to be placed in the minutes. I hope it was.
I don't think we need to do anything on that.
Okay, I pass.
Any other thoughts on that? Oh, we can move forward then. Call to the public. Anybody want to speak?
Well, I'll just briefly touch on
Just
it.
state your name first.
So this is James Ballard. Just comment on the UIC issue. I've worked in states where the state has taken over regulation and made it actually quite a complicated and time-consuming process for both staff and industry. And it does have a big impact on what we would hope to have in Arizona, which would be any kind of development program which would involve flooding, water flooding or injection support of that kind. You'd be to be in a position where the Oil and Gas Commission can want to approve a development program, that you have a separate process which would actually approve a component of it. So it can make life very complicated. I'm saying, as a citizen, I'd like to keep it as simple as possible, and maybe not follow the same path as California and some of the other states. Thank you.
Did you attend the stakeholder meeting?
No.
This is Bill. And kind of on the lines of
Here's the problem, Bill. We're in public comment.
Oh, sorry, I'm
You're
not
Commissioner.
public. Okay,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Any other public comments? Okay, we're on to item 13. Review and consider future item agendas. I'd like to ask one thing. The brief that we did for this meeting, how do the other commissioners feel about that, and would you like to have that done in this format in the future?
I think that was fantastic work, and I think it should continue as is the ability of the Oil and Gas Administrator.
Dale, what we're doing is Dennis and I are drafting it together. It becomes attorney work product until we get to the meeting. After the meeting, it will be posted as part of the public record. Is that
I
okay?
understand that.
Is that okay with the commission?
Yeah.
I thought it was helpful, but I think there's some times where we'll spend more time developing it than we will doing it. And I'd like to give some leeway to staff to determine when they think they need to be supplying this to us.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, and that's why I said if it's subject to the time available to the staff.
Very good. Anything else in that area?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Dennis.
So, just, I guess, maybe it's redundant, but at the next meeting, we expect Arizona Energy Partners to show up with a spacing exception. It actually wouldn't be an agenda item on the regular meeting, it would be a hearing. And on the regular agenda item also, they'll be requesting a renewal of, or extension of the permit deadlines on the 2-1 MS and the 2-1 NA. It wouldn't need a permit extension on the 16-1, obviously, because they've already drilled it, but there will be future agenda items. You can expect that on the next agenda, 14th of September.
I assume we'll be seeing Ms. Hove on that day to support the information. Thank you.
Announcements. I have one announcement. ADOT went before GERC and changed a number of their rules and regulations with regard to how they treat vehicles that are involved in oil and gas production. And they had input from outside sources, including the multiple states, and that was approved by GERC, and that was done at their last meeting earlier this week.
Is that licensing requirements?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
About $7,500 worth, I'm assuming.
It modified it. It made it easier for them and less costly. Anything else under announcements? Adjournment.
Good.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
No, I can't make a motion.
Second.
I can. I'm a
You can.
commissioner.
Thank you.
Second. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Beat you, Dale.
Oh gosh, you can lose them all. Can't lose them all.